Good morning, America. Today we're going to be talking about two different cases out of two different jurisdictions. One is out of the South, and the other one is out of the Northeast. So I bet you guys can guess which one went our way and which one didn't go our way. So let's go ahead and jump into it. All right, guys, let's go ahead and talk about the one out of Connecticut first. This case dealt with the carrying of firearms in state parks. Basically, a guy sued Connecticut because they have a law that says you cannot carry a firearm in a state park. So I'm gonna go ahead and bring that one up first. Let me just get the right one here. Yeah, I think this one is it. Let's see. Oh, or is it? Oh, no, that's Alabama. We're gonna go to this one first. All right. Uh, blow this up a little bit. All right, guys. This deals with Nostri versus Dykes. Katie Dykes is is the commissioner of what's known as DEEP, which is the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. They are the ones that made the law that says you cannot carry a firearm in Sleeping Giant State Park, and a few other different state parks. This challenge was a facial and as applied challenge. As we have talked about in the past, a facial challenge challenges the whole constitutionality of a law, where an as applied challenge is a little bit more narrow, and it's only as applied to the plaintiffs. So they tried to ask for both. I guess they wanted the facial challenge first, and if that didn't work, they were going to accept an as applied challenge. This is a motion for summary judgment, and basically, the too long didn't read is that it didn't work out our way. One of the reasons why it didn't work out our way is right here. The judge found, and this is a district court, a federal district court, the judge found there was no modern style parks around in 1791. So you're not going to be able to find any historical analogs because there wasn't any parks like that, according to the judge. There was public spaces and green spaces, such as Boston Commons that were gathered that was used for different gatherings, military, religious, grazing, everything like that. It wasn't anything like we use it for now. The first public parks, according to the judges, popped up around the 1850s, around the Civil War era. Now, whenever you see something around the Civil War era, you're gonna get kind of scared because usually they're gonna point to racist gun laws because of the Reconstruction era. Um, the basically the way a Bruin analysis works, and they use the Bruin analysis on this, is a two-step process. The first step is to look at the plain conduct of what the person is doing, the right to bear arms. The bearing arms is covered by the plain text of the Second Amendment, and the person that's suing is an American, at least 18 years of age. And we all know the people is at least Americans 18 years of age because that's the age of the majority in the country. Although it could be said that it applies to more people than just Americans that have reached the age of the majority in the country. So, um, uh, basically, they go through the judge right here goes through looking at the historic the traditions of firearms regulations in and the mid 1800s because, according to the judge, they couldn't use anything from the founding era. So the earliest example was an 1858 law where there was a park that banned firearms, which is definitely interesting. And then they go into the Yellowstone where they blocked firearms in 1871. And then there is another park law from 1936. So their real analogs was nothing from the founding eras, but they discounted that because they said that that there wasn't any parks in 1791, which I disagree with because there was tons of public land in 1791 that would be considered parks today, but they just weren't called parks. And none of those had restrictions on the carrying of firearms. But the judge didn't buy that because basically they said, uh, they're not similar enough to parks in today's use. So the judge basically ruled that the banning of firearms in parks is constitutional, which I totally disagree with. It's using a way to get around the law by saying we don't have to look at the founding era because we're not going to be able to find anything from the founding era. So I'm going to make an excuse to look at other eras to try to justify a ban. All right. So that was the bad one. Gonna go ahead and share the good one now. This is Butler versus Bondi, and this is out of the Northern District of Alabama. Yeah, it is definitely intellectually dishonest. This deals with the engaged in the business lawsuit. There is a bunch of different lawsuits going on dealing with this. Basically, what happened is Joe Biden wanted to get universal background checks. He was not able to get universal background checks, so he basically ordered the ATF to create a rule that would mean that in order to sell a firearm, you would need an FFL or go through an FFL. He changed the rule and made a new engaged in the business rule. If you make $1 on a gun, you need an FFL. If you sell a gun because you need to pay bills, you need an FFL. If you have a spreadsheet or some type of database with all the firearms that you have, you need an FFL. Basically, it was backdoor universal background checks. It wasn't basically, it was backdoor universal background checks. And they took a congressional statute and reinterpreted it. The ATF claimed that they had the power to do that because of the John Cornyn Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. So, yeah. There's a bunch of injunctions on this. So, it's not really enforced right now, but there's a chance that it will be enforced. Both parties moved for summary judgment in this case. And the judge basically stated, there's too long didn't read, is that the ATF overstepped their powers when coming up with the engaged in the business final rule because of stuff like no minimum threshold. It just wasn't that clear. Let's go ahead. I'm going to scroll through this. There's a couple of different things I want to highlight here. Right here. One of the things in the rule that was very concerning to me and other people is the absence of reliable evidence to the contrary. Basically, what the new rule said is that they were going to consider you guilty of being engaged in the business of selling firearms unless you can prove that you're not engaged in the business of firearms. Now, it's a rule, so it's not a law, but it's a de facto law because it has the force of the federal government behind it, and there is criminal penalties behind it if you violate the rule. So it's basically a de facto law, and they're accusing you of a de facto crime. And in the United States, we have the presumption of innocence. That the rule takes that and turns it on its head. Instead of having a presumption of innocence, you have a presumption of guilt under the law. So that definitely cannot stand. Also, if you like advertised your firearm in like the paper or any website or put it on a table or told anyone about it, they basically said that you're engaged in the business of selling a firearm. And right now my mouse is locked up. So that's like hey Dark, can you jump on for a second? My mouse is locked up. Oh, never mind, I got it back. Never mind. So the only way to not be in the business of selling a firearms if someone comes up to you and say, "Hey, I want to buy your gun, but I'm going to give you less than market value for it." Then you wouldn't be engaged in selling of a firearm. But any other way, you would be engaged in selling a firearm, which is not the way it should be. There is a lot of different ways to look at this, but in this case, the ATF tried to argue that he didn't have standing to sue. The judge rejected that. One of the things you see in cases is that the government always tries to play this you don't have standing to sue, which of course he does. He is part of the people. I'm not going to go through the whole entire thing again. And the conduct is presumptively lawful under the Second Amendment. So this really isn't a Second Amendment case. This was an APA case, Administrative Procedures Act case, because they basically made a law and exceeded their statutory authority to make that law. Right here says the plaintiff attacked the final rule in 5 ways. First, the plaintiff says the ATF exceeded its statutory authority in issuing the final rule. Second, the plaintiff alleges the final rule is arbitrary and capricious, which it definitely is arbitrary and capricious. Oh, there he is. Hi, Dark. Hi, Dark.
You removed me and said hello.
Yeah. So the law
What's
is
up, bud?
arbitrary and capricious. What the arbitrary and capricious means is that it's very unclear and it's very vague, which is the
Gay.
third, which has said the plaintiff assert the final rule is unconstitutionally vague. And it is because you don't really know if you need an FFL or not, because they
Yeah.
don't really lay out anything.
Oh, hold on. I can't comment on this, can I?
What do you mean?
Be engaged in the business of?
This is not our lawsuit.
Okay, all right. I just want to double
This is
check.
another lawsuit at Alabama.
All right, all right.
The plaintiffs argue that the final rule violates the separation of power, non-delegation, and the take care clause of the U.S. Constitution. What that means in layman's terms is that Congress has the ability to make laws. That is their purview, and it's not up to the ATF. The ATF cannot make laws themselves. And this is a de facto law. So, and the judge basically threw the book at the ATF and issued a summary judgment for the plaintiff, and for the most part. He goes through everything. So basically, he grants the plaintiff summary motion on count 1 and denies the summary motion for all others. Basically, what that means is that the plaintiff won, and since he found on count 1, it doesn't really matter about the other ones. Hold on, let me just stop that. So the plaintiff only needed to win on 1 count, and that's what he won on the first count. So this is a victory for the Second Amendment.
Victory.
Yeah. Basically, it was a victory on the APA violations, ceding its authority.
Mitten State Media says, I'm still waiting for Dark to open his roadside lemonade stand. I was advised by counsel to not openly engage in felonious activity, especially after speaking of it on the internet. So I'm going to be a good boy.
Yeah. So this is an APA victory. Yeah, APA victories aren't real wins, but they are. I mean, they're real wins. It's the easiest way for the courts to. It's the easiest way for the courts to get rid of these cases because they're obvious APA violations, and then you don't have to deal with any of the constitutional issues.
So there's likely a lot of people out there that don't know what an APA win is. The
And
APA is
you have the APA, which is the Administrative Procedures Act. It lays down how administrative agencies, such as the ATF, can pass rules
Mhm.
and what they can do. What these places can't do is pass de facto laws through the rulemaking process. So they can't redefine congressional statutes, for example.
Yeah.
You can't reinterpret like the bump stock thing was an APA thing, right?
Yeah.
They reinterpreted what a machine gun was. So because they
Frames and
reinterpreted
braces.
that federal law to something that it's not, to expand that federal statute that violates the APA. And
Yeah.
courts can set aside any type of rule that is repugnant of the HPA.
APA.
I mean APA.
It's hard with all these acronyms, but yeah, I mean, I get it. I agree that it's not a real win because it's not a true Second Amendment victory. However, I'll take it because
Bump stocks, right? That was
yeah, I mean, it still ends in our favor. Is it the
APA win.
braces? It's still a win, although it's not a win for the cause. It's a pseudo win for that happens to help our cause.
Well, it's the easiest way for these courts to get out of it. They know what they have to roll, but they don't want to put their name out on the constitutionality a lot.
Yeah,
So they can use the APA to get rid of unconstitutional rules.
facts.
And that's what they do. Now, it's going to be interesting to see if the DOJ and the ATF appeal this, because they can and go to the circuit court. But I'm not convinced that they will appeal it.
Why do you say that?
Because I know they engaged in the business rule was one of the rules that they were looking at, saying, is this something we really want to do or not? It's one of the rules that they were talking about walking back behind the
Gotcha.
scenes. So I don't know if they will appeal it or just let it die. Much like in the brace thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's one of
Yeah,
the rules that they were gonna walk back, and they, decided not to appeal it because, hey.
and it's not that the ATF is using the APA, it's that the ATF is bound to follow that procedure for rulemaking. So it's not like a tool that they're using to work against us. It's a tool that they technically have to comply to that they didn't in
People
many
keep on
situations.
violating
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that'd be a better way to put it. A tool that they have been, you know,
the
saying
guidelines,
like,
it's
"Oh,
boundaries, and they keep on going past those boundaries. The APA sets
yes.
up boundaries for a federal agency.
Yeah." Which is indeed, I mean, it's been factually proven to be gay.
Yeah,
I mean, the key part here is engaged in the business.
yeah.
So remember that. That's fun facts with Dark.
Basically, too long didn't read is they say you're violating the APA, you're exceeding the authority that Congress has given you over um, these things. You cannot interpret federal statute in order to make it fit your narrative.
Yeah, facts.
Yeah. So it's like the guardrails, and the ATF keeps on going over the guardrails.
Yeah. And in some cases, even, demoing the guardrails that are there and just kind of, putting new ones in just a little further out and a little further out. They're
Wouldn't they be moving them further in?
well, it would be giving them
Oh, more breathing.
more.
Yeah,
Well,
I
I guess no, you're right, because if we're I guess it depends on
if we're
who's
the cars.
the traffic, yeah, right. It depends on the analogy.
Yeah.
Did you hear about that cop that was caught with a Glock with a switch?
No.
It was out in the city in DC. Sorry, I know that's not the topic. It's funny.
Shocker.
Yeah, shocker.
I
Yeah,
knew I knew a DC cop, and, some lady he arrested complained saying that the dude's Asian, so he's a minority, but, he arrested him saying that he was, dropping the M-bombs on her and stuff. And he's like, "I got body cameras."
dang.
It's like, "What are you doing?"
It's funny. I've seen, and this kind of, made it a little more real to me. I've seen a bunch of law enforcement, just in their everyday life, accidentally breaking firearm laws and rules
Yeah.
and not even knowing it. And see, it's different because most people that are here that are paying attention, that are, watching, rules and laws and regulations and all that stuff, they're more hip to what's going on and what most people are not paying close enough attention, or the firearm world is not big enough in their life that they, pay close enough attention. And when I started seeing there were police officers, which, sorry guys, were mostly idiots. Um, they were accidentally breaking rules and laws all the time. I hate to even say rules and laws, but it is what it is. And it definitely brought an awareness to me that, like, if law enforcement is accidentally breaking laws all the time, then surely, the people that are supposed to be enforcing this stuff, then surely individuals that spend way less time looking into this, studying stuff like this, looking at court cases and case precedents and, just the stuff that ATF had been changing constantly. Of course, people are going to err and make mistakes. And the rule of lenity is like gone. That doesn't exist anymore, barely. Um, it's just kind of crazy. They cannot expect something that literally was birthed on the grounds of shall not be infringed to have 50,000 laws on the books and these stupid rules of, well, something must be greater than 26 inches and it's just crazy. Like,
Alright,
how?
that kinda reminds me of something. I was debating gun control with someone, right? And I was
No, really?
Yeah, I was like, gun control doesn't work. You know, you like, and plus it's unconstitutional. Like, no, that's not unconstitutional. It does work. Well, I started giving out facts, and he's like, I think I'm a little bit more qualified to talk about this than you are. I'm like, I've written several thousand articles on it. Um, I have a few books on it.
I'm a
I
published
research it.
author, son.
It's my job. I was like, yeah, well, I'm a little bit more qualified. Like, how are you more qualified than I am on this topic? And you know what the answer was?
I was gonna say, let me guess. I'm in law enforcement.
No, my dad was a cop.
Oh, get really, really. My dad could beat up your dad. That's
Yeah, well, my dad, I'm a
yeah.
little bit more qualified than you, but still, like, how? My dad was a cop. Like,
What
really?
a shame. What happened to real men? You know what I mean? Like that. What a freaking shame.
Like the thousands of hours of research I've done, the thousands of articles I've written, the books I have written. Your dad's a cop overwhelms that.
Yeah, so you just naturally absorbed law enforcement. It just soaked into you just by being around him. And by the way, how much did he police while he was with you when he was not enforcing law? And I cannot tell you how many times that like I'd been pulled over or messed with when I was younger and had guns and the cops are literally like, "That's a machine gun. That's an SBR. Is that a silencer? Is that like," and I'm like, "Dude, really? Like you don't know this stuff? Isn't it your literal job?"
Yeah,
But
it was
yeah,
like
they don't know anything.
it was like gun laws. I was like, I'm pretty sure I know the laws.
I will say that let me say this because I don't want to cast a big well, I guess I already did. I don't want to cast like a big blanket over one particular, type of people in the world. There are a lot of very committed law enforcement officers out there that do keep up with stuff that are real gun guys that are much more informed about, firearm laws and rules and regulations. If you're here and if you're watching and if you're learning about this stuff, then we're not talking about you. But if you're the guy that probably has already transitioned to a different sex, whose dad was a cop, we are talking about you, unfortunately. So sorry.
Yeah, it's like, okay, well, you just threw away all the research I've ever done.
Don't take it personally. They're totally tarded.
I'm like, yeah. What is it? I'm like, are you joking?
See this now, of course, it's anecdotal but hilarious. Safety Harbor Firearms, an excellent place to buy a 50 BMG SHTF 50, says my wife's dad was a cop for 50 years. He didn't know shiznit about firearm laws. There you go.
I'm what you consider a what am I sharing?
I was gonna say it doesn't say anything. Just this.
We're sharing it.
We're sharing it. We shared it with everyone.
All right. Well, we're gonna get out of here. Thank you guys so much for watching it, and we will talk to you guys later. Bye.
Later, guys.